Embattled Virginia Democrat Jay Jones on the defensive at his debate against Jason Miyares for Attorney General, thanks to those text messages where he envisioned the death of the state's former House Speaker.
Let me be very clear. I am ashamed. I am embarrassed. And I'm sorry. I am sorry to Speaker Gilbert. I'm sorry to his family. I'm sorry to my family. And I'm sorry to every single Virginian. I cannot take back what I said. But you have my word that I will always be accountable for my mistakes.
Jones's opponent, Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares, joins us now. So great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us. So, Mr. Attorney General, it was interesting during that debate, which was a marvelous, fascinating, instructive, and informative debate. I was keeping a tally of how many times Jay Jones referenced Donald Trump, but then I had to start another tally for how many times he talked about how he was going to be held accountable and holds himself accountable for those texts that he wrote. How has he been held accountable if he's still in the race?
Well, he hasn't. In fact, what he's seeking is for a job promotion. I mean, it's not just the fact of what he said about Todd Gilbert. It's the fact that he openly said he wanted to see Todd's children die in his wife Jennifer's arms, because in his words, pain is how change occurs. It's this mindset that he wanted to piss on the grave of his political opponents, as he wrote in those text messages. So the reality is he's seeking a job promotion, but if he was just applying to be a line prosecutor in my office, he would not even pass a background check. That is probably the most startling thing. So if he actually understood the gravity of what he had said, also what he had said about cops, telling a colleague he hoped to see cops die to advance his political agenda, at the end of the day, he wouldn't even be seeking this office. But he has this mindset that, yes, I'm sorry, now give me a job promotion. Ultimately, I don't think Virginia voters are going to reward him with that mindset.
Well, as you pointed out, after he kept referring, I think he made north of 35 references to Donald Trump. As you pointed out, that maybe he should run for political office in Washington. Maybe he should run for Congress instead of trying to be the safeguard of people, of the law in Virginia. Yeah.
No question. And so what this has become is now a national test of decency. I didn't think my attorney general's race would have national ramifications. But think about this. This gives a permission slip. If somehow he was able to get through that gate and he was to serve as the top prosecutor, which is supposed to stop violence after advocating for violence, that gives a permission slip for any other on the far left thinking they can say and verbalize these things. So what we've been telling people is, this is where we can make a stand for decency. Even if you're not in Virginia, you could still go to standwithjason.com to send that message that we're going to say no to those in the far left that not only just wanting political opponents to die, cops to die, but also children to die. That is simply not acceptable in today's America. And so now this is the decency test that's on the ballot for all of us in Virginia, and I would say even nationwide.
And so, of course, as all of this is going on, Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat running for governor, is under fire for refusing to cut Jay Jones from her ticket with a local law enforcement agency trying to pressure the Police Benevolence Association from withdrawing their support for her in a statement saying endorsing a candidate who refuses to denounce a colleague advocating violence against police officers is reckless and runs counter to the very principles your organization claims to represent. I strongly urge your leadership to review these comments carefully, reconsider your endorsement, and take immediate action to restore credibility, trust, and alignment with membership. That's pretty strong pressure coming down over this.
Well, I mean, if Jay Jones was to apply to be in her cabinet, and this came out during his confirmation process, I don't think he'd still be a member of her cabinet. And I do think it's noted that in the gubernatorial debate, she essentially told voters, make your own decision. And so this is a real, I think, a test of leadership. Think about this. Almost Abigail Spanberger, the Speaker of the House, and so many others, they called for the previous governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, to resign over a 30-year-old yearbook photo. But at the same time, they're saying we want to see this individual be elevated and get a job promotion. to be the top prosecutor in the state who has to work with law enforcement, work with those in law enforcement against violence against children. How could Jay Jones ever comfort a mother that has lost her child to violence? Now the whole world knowing that he's actually advocated and hoped to see violence on a beautiful young mom and her children just to advance a political agenda. It just shocks the conscience, and that's why all of us can stand up and say no to hate, yes to decency, and victory in November.
Indeed. Such an important point. Attorney General Jason Miyares, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.